I'm Dinah Rowe, a member of the worship committee, and I'll be one of your worship associates today. Other members of the worship committee you will hear from, including myself, the church treasurer, and our music coordinator, Alec Peck. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart. We invite you to leave your worries and defenses at the door and trust that what happens in worship is inspiring and powerful. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser as we begin a new day and a new week. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. For our call to worship, you're welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Our speaker today is UUCR member William Casey. Bill tries to draw from a number of theistic and philosophical points of view. While this does not always produce an orderly methodology, he takes comfort in the patchwork utility it tends to provide. Bill notes with amusement, if only brevity were included. Originally from Colorado, Bill lives a short distance from UUCR. He has been a member of UUCR for some years now and has been active in the choir and worship committee. Bill says, this being NFL season, I'm tying my interest in football to some of the values found in the 7 principles. 2 of the concepts I'd like to introduce are traction and the pivot. How do these ideas manifest in practice of our 7 principles? How can we make a successful pass, accomplish our goals, and win the game? We have 2 lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of indigenous people, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred candle as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's reading of the Chalice lighting is from the Passover Haggadah, number 453, in Singing the Living Tradition. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. This portion of our service is where we greet our guests. If there is someone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and we will call on you. Please let us know who you are, where you're from, and how you found out about us. Adam, do we have any online visitors with us today?
Yeah, it looks like Caleb Van Cross would like to introduce themselves, doing one-on-one to give them up here.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hello. My name's Caleb. This is my second time joining you. I joined you last week online as well from your porch. So my name's Caleb Vincross. I live in Grand Terrace. I'm an interfaith healthcare chaplain at the VA, and I'm looking to broaden my interfaith connections and find worship in a setting that welcomes all. So this is a blessing to be here, and I'm just sitting out here by Blue Mountain, enjoying the sunshine and enjoying your virtual presence. So thank you for your welcome.
Welcome, Caleb.
Welcome.
For new visitors online, if you wish to get added to the mailing list, please email the church office. The address will be shown. Our hymn now is Wo Ya Ya. We invite you to sit back, listen, sing along if you wish, and enjoy.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within.
This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. You may send your checks to the church address, which will be shown. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is on the church website and also on the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which are in the church office. You get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage of the card you purchase. Amazon cards are also available. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent. Thank you for your generous care and attention. Our next hymn will be From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Our meditation today is And Then by Judy Chicago. And then all that has divided us will merge. And then compassion will be wedded to power. And then softness will come to the world that is harsh and unkind. And then both men and women will be gentle. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will cherish life's creatures. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Now let us pause for a moment of silence. Now I would like to introduce Bill Casey speaking to us on tightening the cleats.
I posit that I am one of the few pantheists or pagans you will ever run into who also follow sports, especially college and pro football. There may be others, but probably fewer than you'd think. Now, I've often joked that because our Unitarian services tend to be comparatively short, our service runs an hour, and in the Orthodox Church, 5-hour services occur. But because our services are comparatively short, it is only the first part of my spiritual Sunday practice during football season. Next comes coffee hour. And then later comes the part of the afternoon where I celebrate the spiritual truths that can be found when 22 spandex-clad future millionaires seek to catch and disarm or dismember each other in the pursuit of a smallish elliptical ball, which is prone both to sleek aerodynamics and ridiculously malevolent, stupid bounces. Now, the impact between players can approach comparisons to a traffic collision of about 25 to 35 miles an hour. And this can happen upwards of 60 times a game to some people. Now, to some of you, this might seem to be an unusual adjunct to a day spent seeking spiritual or mental clarity, screaming, bodies crunching, and all that, the crowd noise, all of that. Well, there may indeed be some cautionary elements in this practice. I assure you that there are indeed spiritual elements if you know where and how to look. We look, in this case, using analogies. When extrapolated, the results can be spiritually useful and more than a bit inspiring. Now, few things operate in a vacuum. Football is no exception. Traction is vital, and whether the force of traction begins or ends at the feet, there is still that moment of contact, of proper friction, of attraction that either allows positive action or impedes it. Nor is traction a single force. A sidestepping defensive back uses traction differently from a down lineman. Spiritually or physically, eventually we come into contact with the world. Now, our religious practice tends to use traction as well. Spiritual traction comes from knowing the principles we wish or need to manifest in this world, outside television, in our lives. It is important to work on developing a stable stance or baseline from which to practice our beliefs, from which to project them, as well as a flexible mindset that allows us to expand and grow in our faith. Cleats are studs on the sole of a big, clunky football shoe. They provide additional traction on soft or slippery surface. They provide stability and protection and enable a number of different plays or approaches. All athletes know that proper gear and equipment are necessary to perform well on the playing field, but more so, connection with what needs to be done. First and foremost, cleats should fit comfortably enough to allow your foot to flex and make quick movements. Loose cleats for digging loose cleats don't dig in time. Tight ones don't allow movement. Cleats that are too loose will increase injury to your foot. Ideally, you're looking for a fit that ensures an optimal touch and feel on the ball. Similarly, enjoy the freedom to incorporate the 7 principles in our daily lives in a way that feels comfortable and allows each of us to manifest them in a personally meaningful way. A Unitarian may find that a heavy, slow traction might be needed in an argument moving someone from our second principle to our third, to convince a non-Unitarian that we should not only deal with another person with summary, rough justice, equity, and some compassion, all of it rudimentary and not heartfelt, but with actual acceptance and encouragement. Well, that's a tall order for someone who's not familiar with our traditions. For some, basic politeness towards someone who holds different personal beliefs is already quite a challenge, perhaps more so in these partisan times. Moving to acceptance and encouragement is harder for some to accept, let alone the openness to have a free and responsible search for meaning that could produce a further divergence from what they have already grudgingly decided to tolerate. Now, this could be called the pivot. In football, one runs a myriad of different plays. A player who corners well at high speed finds himself an advantage when attempting to catch or intercept a pass. Likewise, in spiritual practice, we can look at our relationships with other individuals on progressively larger groups of people and continue to strive for decent, humane, and inclusive treatment for larger and larger blocks of society. It starts with value X, treat people fairly, and moves to value Y, value their decisions. Now, there is a non-football model called the Overton Window for understanding how ideas in society change over time and influence politics. It demonstrates how politicians exert influence, or fail to, on policies that lead to successive social change. Policies that are widely accepted through society lie within the window. Other ideas that are too radical for support lie outside the window. A couple of examples. Slaves may be freed, but fearing too much change, Jim Crow laws were enacted. More recently, voter reform rules seemingly uphold the right to vote, but do not deal with long waiting lines, upwards of 9 hours in Georgia in places, a huge shortage of drop boxes, or even the humanitarian distribution of water to folks waiting for hours to cast their vote. A change is needed to create a better civilization. What is needed in this case is to assure those who tend to be very critical of votes cast from a liberal mindset is that they will not be damaged by an even approach to resources and their allocations. Just as a team is confident of overall fair judgment and fair play, so too a society has to be somewhat trusting of their authorities. But fair play is important. If the district is gerrymandered, it should be fixed. It doesn't matter if it is your district or theirs. It should be lined up so that votes are properly counted and not dispersed unfairly. And it needs to apply to everyone equally. It would certainly not have helped if it certainly would have helped if we had had a proper census, mind you. A just vote should not manufacture voters from nowhere, but it could certainly allow the members of a county to count their conscience ethically, justly, and promptly. And if it cannot be done nationally, strive to see it done locally. Being a sports fan, one of the things to be extremely cautious of is an idea that the Romans used to call bread and circuses, which brought us, among other things, chariot races of extreme violence and the gladiatorial games. Bread and circuses is the idea of giving people an entertaining show to distract them from critical issues. Give them cheap food so they don't starve, such as a wings and beer special. Something to watch, such as the playoff football, which I insist is still a spiritual example. Please note that the Fox network has an undoubtedly very fine sports network. As a news network, many people have some grave reservations. Admittedly, bread and circuses, especially the circuses part, are often more easily digestible than hardcore politics. And we should also know the difference between a zero-sum game, like the NFL and college football, and a multiple-sum game, which you are playing right now, something called a membership in a hopefully peaceful, just, and kind society. It is called a multiple sum game because there is a way for you to have a good day that you can consider a win, and also I can feel the same way. Your victory is not my defeat. The victory is that we all do well and take care of each other. I can afford to lose zero-sum games. Unless I'm fighting for my life, it really means nothing more than a I owe my buddy a beer. But we cannot, as a people, afford to lose the second type of game, the multiple sum game, the game where somebody goes hungry to bed and somebody else goes to pad a bank account. A football game has moments of transcendence that we do not always get in a political conflict. A 42-36 win by the Kansas City Chiefs over the Buffalo Bills has many moments that will belong on a highlight reel for years to come. And yes, I won that game. Now, in contrast, the ideals we might see expressed between anti-vaxxers and vaccine mandate backers, well, those are likely to be muddy, angry, complicated, vengeful, and really unlikely to be resolved harmoniously. Perhaps one of the things that draws me to watching Sunday afternoon football, in a matter of hours, any conflicts are resolved, frequently in an aesthetically pleasing way. Often they're mutual high fives, compliments on a game well played, everyone walks away, finishes their beer and French fries, and moves on with it. But this kindly response to a hard session, a competition, this is much less common on a long session of political debate on social media. I can't speak for you guys, but I have found myself in a bitter verbal quarrel on YouTube within 20 minutes of leaving the church sometimes. And such hostility can feed on itself, giving the bread and circuses take on things a really hostile, destructive edge. Certainly the politics as team sport, it's done a lot of damage. One example of how far this can be taken is in the Byzantine Empire. There was a juxtaposition between one group that was called the Blues, which had their athletes, their chariots and whatnot that they cheered for, and the Greens, which represented the lower classes or the party of the people. There was also some religious stuff in there to make it even more intense and ugly. This finally heated up to the point where we had the Nika riots that lasted for 5 days, with nearly half of Constantinople being burnt or destroyed, half of the city. The death of the emperor was endangered. The death toll was estimated to be about 30,000 people. Nika was the term that was chanted in the gladiatorial circuses of the time that meant win, just win, baby, which happens to be, for example, used to be the motto of the Oakland Raiders. Now, certainly we live in a world that's occupied, but is divided, I should say, on numerous fronts, multiple chambers, a range of subjects we could not have foreseen a mere 15 to 20 years ago. And we have trained ourselves, partially through zero-sum games like sports, to be quite partisan. Still, I see some room for hope when interacting with more conservative folks. Let's take a look at those principles and ideas. The inherent worth and dignity of all. Justice and equity. Compassion. Acceptance and encouragement, and a responsible search for meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. World community in peace, liberty, and justice. Respect for the interconnected web of life. These are worthy goals that are often challenging to meet, no matter what your affiliation, Unitarian or not. But perhaps the same spirit of sportsmanship I speak of ideal, simplified interaction, can integrate itself so that we can keep trying to connect in a way that is at least as kind as having 2 or 3 players slamming into each other at 30+ miles an hour. We can get to the point where, just as I would not take a touchdown that my team had not earned, so too I would not, just as I would not have you score when you should not, I would not do that to you. And that equity is how, in a society as complex as ours, we can do some serious, deep work in the world when we are looking out for each other. Now, certainly a bit of caution is called for, but continue what we have to lose or gain as participants in this game that we play while living. Learning some of the ideas of the physical, I submit to you, can be more helpful to our spiritual practice than we might have imagined. As you use, we should be ready to learn something from anyone on earth. And this includes spandex-covered millionaires. I thank you for your time.
Our closing hymn is Fire of Commitment. Sit back, close your eyes, and listen quietly.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of the living brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Our benediction today, The Line by Sarah Alden Ripley. The line in life, nature, science, philosophy, religion constantly returns into itself. The opposite poles become one when the circle is completed. All truth revolves about one center. All is a manifestation of one law. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Bill, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. It is certainly appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. We're going to have about a 10 to 15-minute discussion following the service to share any observations or impressions you may have. Be aware that this will be included on the video that is posted. If you have a question for Bill, unmute yourself, and Bill will be ready to answer your question. Go ahead. You have to unmute your.
Just ask again if there's any questions or comments for Bill.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Bill? Type him a message. He has to unmute himself. Can you hear us, Caleb?
Oh, that was me swiping. I wasn't raising my
okay.
hand. But
Okay.
Bill, I appreciated that message a lot. That was awesome. You had me totally cracking up at spandex-clad millionaires. And I love the concept of pivoting and that whole allegory of the correct fit of the cleats. Yeah, that's deep. That's so applicable. And yeah, I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I was hoping this thing would work.
Mhm.
Oh, there's no other questions.
What? If there aren't any more questions, we'll see you next week. And a reminder that you can see this service on the YouTube channel later in the week. Be a good one to repeat. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
Hey, you too.